I have been thinking about an unbridled optimism that I used to have when we could bring about a society, or maybe even a civilization, in which religious dogma played much less, if any, of a role in it. And the question is, was that doctrine, were those doctrines a prophylactic against people becoming insane, like thinking men can become pregnant, mutilating children's genitals, thinking that there's literally the society is overrun by racists and not the literal Nazis running or goose stepping in and out of Starbucks and stuff. I do think that I was overly optimistic about the consequences, and I certainly did not expect the current fiasco that we see.
So when I talk to my remaining liberal friends who've largely voted Democrat their entire life, or when we talk about guys like that, guys like Coleman Hughes, who was on The View recently.
Yeah, I just saw him,
basically destroying the woke, being attacked by the women of The View, but then in essence said, I'm not going to vote for Trump. We are left with this binary choice. And I wonder what leaves these last liberals, as everyone knows, I talk about on my show relentlessly. I think they're the last group in America who could really move right now. What would cause someone like you to me, and I say this to you with love as a friend, I don't know how in your right mind you could vote for Democrats anymore, knowing everything that you know about things. But I suspect that's not something that you would really want to talk about.
No, I'll talk about anything you want to talk about, other than my personal life, which I don't talk about. So I guess if the question is, what would it take me to vote for?
Yeah. Somebody? Because I keep seeing a lot of these people, like even if you took a Joe Rogan type, he hasn't fully said he'll vote for Trump yet, but it's kind of obvious that's what he should do. Maybe Bill Maher won't get there. Coleman Hughes maybe won't get there, but I'm trying to figure out what is the thing that would take all the people who acknowledge what the real problems are, and then maybe there's a political chance at some of it.
All right, I'll answer your question directly.
Yeah.
It would take a non-Trump. It would take a Vivek Ramaswamy. It would take an RFK running as it would take somebody. I don't think. But
this is what
I don't have
got.
TDS.
Yeah.
Well, it's first of all, this doesn't answer your question, but it's worth stating. This is horrific for our democracy.
Yeah.
It's horrific for our country. Literally nobody I know thinks that the runoff is a good idea. And we go all around the world. My buddy Reed and I, we do the spectrum street epistemology.
Yeah.
Dave, it is an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment when people say Trump, Biden, and they laugh at me as if I had something to do with it. Yeah, so I would like a non-Trump, and I don't have TDS. I'm so discouraged with it. The fact that those two guys are there is evidence that we're marching toward hospice as a nation.
And yet here we are. So what does a guy like you do in November? I'm not trying to pin you that I think it's so important that you tell me you're voting for Trump. I'm just trying to understand more so the mindset of the liberal that now gets it on all of the issues and will either end up not voting or voting for, and I'm not accusing you of this, voting for the person who will usher in more of the madness.
I don't think I could do the latter. So the honest answer to your question.
You understand, I'm not trying to get you on like a political you're voting for.
I'm just trying. No, you never have to worry about that. So the honest answer to your question is, I don't know. I don't know what to do. I wish I knew what to do.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know that I'm going to keep fighting. I know that I don't think that the ideology is sustainable long term. I don't know the damage that it's going to do to our institutions in the meantime. I don't know about external threats, about Ukraine. I don't know about China, Taiwan. I don't know about the semiconductor. There are just so many problems right now that we have to think about. I don't know what I'm going to do come the election.
Has any of this, I think we've discussed this once or twice, but it's been about a year or so since I've had you on in this capacity. Has any of this changed your beliefs as far as belief? Because I found during COVID, the people that made the most sense to me were believers, because they didn't necessarily have to believe. Yeah. Because they didn't necessarily believe in the science. They believed in something else.
Yeah.
Whatever that might be.
Yeah.
And I thought that helped keep a lot of people sane, where the people who believe in the science we saw an awful lot of people, some people
Yeah.
who we were friends with at times, really go off the deep end, believing in how the science was changing every given day and everything else. And I wonder if did any of that shift you in any which way or challenge any of your beliefs in that regard?
Yeah,
Your beliefs, quote unquote.
I have been thinking about an unbridled optimism that I used to have when we could bring about a society or maybe even a civilization in which religious dogma played much less, if any, of a role in it. And the question is, was that doctrine, were those doctrines a prophylactic against people becoming insane, like thinking men can become pregnant, mutilating children's genitals, thinking that there's literally the society is overrun by racists and not the literal Nazis running or goose stepping in and out of Starbucks and stuff. I do think that I was overly optimistic about the consequences, and I certainly did not expect the current fiasco that we see.
Did you see this video of Richard Dawkins talking about that recently?
I did. Just to be clear, he's had that position since the God delusion about a Christian nation.
Right. But he doesn't, I thought there was something about the interview that made it, I guess, in light of what's happened in the UK, even since October 7th, he's seeing these marches of Islamists throughout hundreds of thousands.
I was there as
the
well.
Street, right.
I was there for that. Yeah.
So what do you make of that? I mean, this is a real problem.
I thought diversity was our strength.
Not our strength.
Yeah.
Not their strength either.
So what do I make of that?
That Western societies seem to be now shifting in a much worse direction for, say, a free thinker or an atheist or a non-believer.
I guess one of the questions is Islam fundamentally incompatible with Western democratic society? People have talked about that. Faisal Al-Muhtar, a good friend, and I had public discussions about that. I'm deeply disturbed by immigration. I had a great conversation with Matt Goodwin about this, who suggested a solution to this is a 5-year moratorium on immigration in the UK. I am deeply concerned. My buddy and I, Reed, we would get in cabs. And so, I have a million things going on in my head, and we'd talk to the cab drivers. And he said, "Oh, what is all the equipment?" We get those Uber XLs.
Yeah.
And like, "Oh, we're filming. What are you filming?" We're going to Speaker's Corner. And he said, "Well, what are you doing about the Jews?" And then I was like, all ears, like, because I have a million things going on. I'm like, "What do you mean? What are we doing up to this?" What do you mean? He's like, "Well, did you know that the Jews control everything? Who do you pay your rent to?" I'm like, "Oh," and then I'm, doing the Columbo thing. "Oh, I don't know. We're just here." And he says, "Well, do you know the Jews caused World War II?"
Yeah, because that worked out so well for the Jews.
Yeah, and did you know that? So he just keeps going off, and then I had this idea, like, it'd be really interesting to do a kind of version of Taxi Cab Confessions in which you just found taxi cab drivers named Muhammad and just started asking questions about Jews. So I am concerned about the dramatic rise in Islamic immigration, specifically as it relates to Jews. I am concerned about the national sovereignty and the Carl Benjamin. I think you've had him on your show as well. We've spoken about this. I am concerned about the British consciousness in a way that I'm not concerned about the American consciousness. I'm concerned that...
Oh, that's interesting. Wait, can you explain that a little bit further? Because I agree with that. I think America has better defenses for a lot of this than Britain specifically.
Yeah, well, in a very real sense, we are a nation of immigrants. And in a very real sense that we have the type of immigrants we take to this country are skilled and educated. That's not the case with the UK. I think I had an interview with Eric Kaufman, and he was saying something that was just so interesting to me. He said, you can take a look at what ethnic group does what based upon their contributions to the Treasury. Some ethnic groups contribute to the Treasury, some take away from the Treasury. And then I thought to myself, geez, I wonder if you could imagine if even making this suggestion, you get like 5,000 comments.
Yeah.
Boghossian is like right-wing maniac, whatever. I wonder if you could make a rational, sane immigration policy. Could you base that on what groups have made contributions to the Treasury and what groups have taken away contributions to the Treasury? But the fact of the matter is, even making that suggestion, and that's not only does it put you in the right-wing camp, but the moment someone is in the right-wing camp, that makes it so that the people on the left don't have to do the intellectual work to figure out what's wrong with the argument and engage them. And that gives them a reason to not that's the other thing, like I'm not going to go on your show because I'm not going to platform you. Okay. So in other words, that's yet another excuse that the ideology has created, that you're the mouthpiece of the ideology for it to not be dislodged. So then you don't want to platform somebody. In other words, you don't want to be put in a situation where you have to defend your own ideas, like have an apologia for those ideas.
Right. And as it pertains to immigration, let's say, countries go through different phases where things are a little bit different. Give us your poor, tired, and your huddled masses.
100%.
It made a lot of sense for probably I don't know, you could say at least a century. At the moment, relative to all the problems that you've talked about here, does it really make the most sense?
Well, no. But then the question is, why can't we look at that non-ideologically? Like, why can't we look at that solely on the basis of evidence without saying that's a right-wing position, that's a left-wing position?
Do you think it's because of this?
I think that's a major contributory variable.
The phone for the audio listeners.
Yeah, I think that's a major contributory variable. Likes, but I think virtue signaling is a part of it. I think these things have been dormant in the American psyche for generations, but now they've been exacerbated and amplified by social media.
If you're looking for smarter conversations about academia, check out our Academia playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist, all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.